Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and with me, I got Mac
Good evening.
and Gio.
What is good, guys?
Guys, we are halfway through the season, and I think it's time to look back at some of our preseason previews to evaluate how we've done so far and if there's anything we would change potentially to our sort of preseason predictions for this Premier League season. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Let's go straight into it. I think where else to start, but top six predictions. I'll read out the current standings. Of course, this doesn't mean that this is how it's going to end. Although if the Premier League did end, today, I would be happy with that. But of course, that being said, Liverpool are currently first, Aston Villa are second, Manchester City are third, Arsenal are fourth, Tottenham are fifth, and West Ham are sixth. Brighton, Man U, Newcastle, Chelsea are the teams that follow that. But I guess I'll go first. My prediction to win the league this year was Man City, Arsenal to finish second, Liverpool to finish third, Man U to finish fourth, Newcastle to finish fifth, and Brighton to finish sixth. So right off the bat, we have some things that we probably want to get into. But maybe I'll pass it off to you first, Gio. Maybe you can read out your your predictions if you have them there, and then Mac just you do that as well, and then we can all just discuss how we feel about these picks. Gio, why don't you kick us off? What were your predictions?
For my top six, were quite horrible. I would say. Listen, Arsenal aren't first. I know it's still, many games to be played, but they've obviously been in a bad run of form. In second, obviously, Man United. That was an absolute laugh. Then I have Man City. Man City, I think, are definitely up there in terms of 1, 2. Liverpool, obviously, we know is fourth. But I'm actually quite shocked that Newcastle isn't doing a little better than they have. Obviously, we know with the injuries they've accumulated, it's been a tough season for them as they got ousted out of the Champions League as well. So, am I happy about my prediction early on in the year? I can't say I am. Is it disappointing? Obviously. If I had to change anything, I can't really change anything because there are more importance to change on this list for myself. Like I mentioned to you boys earlier, mathematically, I will say this: United are still in it for second, so I'll say that much.
Right. I mean, not wrong, not wrong. Of course, before Mac, you go ahead with yours. Of course, we want to give ourselves an option to double down on a pick, or or also change a pick from our initial predictions. But very interesting picks there from Gio. Mac, what were your preseason predictions?
In order from first to sixth was Arsenal, Manchester City, Liverpool, Manchester United, Newcastle, Aston Villa. So mine is not too dissimilar from Gio's. However, I do argue mine's probably like a snag a little bit better because I have menu a little bit further. So of the teams in the top six, Gio and I have four spot like within the top six, and Ray, you have three. So I feel the most confident about my top six predictions in comparison to you gentlemen, I would say. Obviously, if I had Manchester United further, which if you asked me before the season, would I want them further down the table? Probably. And if I just went with what I wanted, I'd be much happier today. But it is what it is. You can only take so much as you can get. It's still early days, though, in terms of, I think, realistically, I would not be surprised if any of the teams that all of us listed out do finish in the top six. So there's still many games to play for. It is still quite tight up the top because if you look at the sixth place team all the way to the first place team, it's a 9-point swing, which is really a 3-game run, which you feel like any of these teams have in them. And Manchester United, even though, again, I do argue that they're probably quite far away from second, Gio, I apologize. They're not out of the touching distance of being in a top six position. I think the team that we can all agree has dropped down the table the most for us thus far has been Newcastle. We all had them as fifth place. And right now they're ninth. So I think that if we look at probably our biggest miss in terms of our standings, grouping as a collective together, we were probably collectively a little bit higher on them. We may talk about that a little bit later. Spoiler for what I may want to either change or double down on. But I think we're not too far off because, again, all the teams that we had picked are in the top 9. So again, I feel like we were close enough, and still a lot to play for. Where again, the Tottenham's seems like the Tottenham downward trajectory is just starting to come potentially, and may continue to build up. Who knows? With injuries, lots of players leaving for January. We'll see what they'll be able to do. So I think that's one that we all collectively missed within our top 6. Which by the end of the season, them and West Ham, I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped out. So yeah, still early days. Lovely to see. But no, for myself, nothing I think I would individually want to change there as of now.
Yeah, no. Spurs, of course. Maybe we'll get to it a little later for myself, but Spurs, of course, one of the surprises on how well they've started, and of course how well they initially started. Argument there could be how well they'll do in the next sort of 4 weeks with some of those players being away for international duty, but also I think West Ham as well. They should be missing Mohamed Kudus, and I think Paquetá may be out with injury, so could be a rough couple of weeks for them, and we could see Man U, Brighton, and Newcastle push themselves up higher in the table there. But yeah, I think overall we have a decent selection of picks. You already highlighted the Man U choice there, but none of us had Liverpool finishing in the top 2, which currently they sit first. Is there? I mean, it's still early, still halfway through the season. Arsenal, Man City are still, I think, very, very well in the title race, and very well could finish first in the league. Gio, what are your thoughts about Liverpool potentially finishing up in those top 2 positions at the end of the season?
I'm very confident they can do so. I hate to beat a dead horse, but I've said this time and time again. They're taking advantage of them not having the best squad, but they're playing under the radar. They're playing great football while everybody's just talking about how poorly Man City is doing, or how great or bad Arsenal is doing, and they're just flying under the radar, or how bad Ten Hag has a control of Man United right now. And they are just playing football. They have no troubles. They have no worries. They play every team as if they're playing a top 6 contender. And they're executing, and that's the most important point. We can speak for days and days about which team is best on paper, but until that team and that group of players goes out and executes, it's all hearsay, she said, he said. So, and they're doing that perfectly right now. So I think they're playing great football, and I think they have the one of the greatest chances to finish in the top 2, barring these other teams and who they sign in the January transfer window.
Okay, great shout there. And of course, one of the other teams that we haven't spoken about, but we should definitely give flowers to, is second placed team in the standings at the moment, Aston Villa. Mac, yourself and Gio had them in 6th, so actually part of your top 6. I guess, how surprised are you that they're here? And I guess we've talked about it briefly, but what are your chances? What do you think their chances are to finish in the top 6 at the end of the season?
I think they have a very strong chance to finish in the top 6. I would be surprised if they drop down further than that slot. I have them anywhere pegged between 4 to 6. Are they going to finish in the top 3? No. Again, if we're going to continue on with the Liverpool conversation, I feel like going into the season, at least kind of my thoughts were the best team in their tier by themselves was Manchester City, with Liverpool and Arsenal right below them. Depending on the season that Man City could have, based off kind of maybe like having a lackluster, kind of getting kind of more of a full feeling from winning all the trophies these last couple of years, maybe they take kind of a gap year in some ways, and that's why the other 2 teams might leap along across them. So for me, those 3 clearly still they'll finish in the top 3. There is no if, ands, or but about that, in my opinion. The question being in the 4, 5, 6. I think Aston Villa right now have been the most stable, the most consistent team there. They think they're least concerned in terms of kind of outgoings in the January transfer window, as well as any people going for international competitions. I feel like they have the least worries there. The downside to them is they don't necessarily, in my opinion, have as much depth as some of the other teams around them. But they don't have to worry about that because they're not playing in so many different competitions or European competitions, if I recall, at the moment. So I think that they have a little bit of breather. They have a little bit more time. So again, I would be surprised if they fall out of the top 6, and I may even be surprised if they don't end up finishing in that 4th slot, considering what we've seen, the body of work Unai Emery's done, not just this season, but since he's taken over, and especially since the beginning of the 2023 calendar year. So overall, I'd be very surprised if they drop it all.
Yeah, my thing for them is, of course, I've been very impressed with how Aston Villa have been playing, but it's kind of, I guess, similar to what we talk about with Man City, where they have their lulls and then they finish very strongly. Can Aston Villa, because I predict in the next couple of weeks, all these games are going to catch up to them. They might have a little bit of a downward, I guess, a poor run of form, and I want to see how they can bounce back. How can Unai Emery maybe introduce something else, and also how are teams in the Premier League going to try to match up against Aston Villa because of their high line? I'm not sure if maybe they'll try to give Aston Villa the ball and hopefully draw them into their half, and then hopefully hit them on the counter, if that's sort of the approach. But I'm interested to see because, of course, we talk about the Premier League being, of course, the best league in the world. The managers in the league are, of course, competent enough to figure things out through the season, and then if things aren't working, they'll probably try something else. So I'm excited to see how teams sort of rally around that, and eventually when they do come back and face Aston Villa for the second time, how those results may or may not change. I guess then let's move on to our dark horse team to watch. And of course, Gio, I'm gonna toss it to you first. We haven't heard from you regarding Aston Villa yet, but of course you chose Aston Villa as your dark horse team. And if we were to stop the season right now, max points for you there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great shout there, Gio. Of course, I don't think you're gonna want to change this, but let's hear, I guess, pat yourself on the back for this great pick.
No, it was actually, more so just seeing them play in the preseason, and they just looked very good. Whether that translated into the regular season, was still very much of a toss up. Luckily, players are kind of like regaining confidence. A la Ali Watkins, a la John. Is it John McGinn?
It's John McGinn. Okay, thank you.
A la John McGinn. Konsa's having a great season as well. Just all in all, the team morale has picked themselves back up. Has picked itself back up. Post Stevie G, and they've been flying. So it's nice to see teams kind of like just mix it up with the traditional top 6, and that's what makes the Premier League so fun to watch. Is that on any given week, any team can go out there and kind of grab themselves or steal themselves a point or two, and that's what we're seeing with Villa. And we're seeing a lot more, and it's nice to see these teams show out and play such great football, and just goes to prove that it's not just big names that win trophies or put themselves in great positions, because they're playing great football without, say, your traditional superstar names in and out of that team sheet.
Yeah, no, fantastic choice there, and excited to see what the future holds for them in the near term, in the short term. Sorry, Mac. Though Aston Villa, of course, last game in the Premier League, they played your dark horse team selection, Burnley, and got the 3-2 win. Talk us through that, Mac.
That's a miss.
What's happened?
That's a miss. That's as deep of a miss as I get. And again, if I were to change one thing, that would be my team. I saw the way that I was thinking in terms of the team coming up. Generally, one team in the bot that is promoted generally does well, and they were my pick. But the downside is all three have been trashed, and this very rarely does happen where all three of them are literally hot garbage. Normally, one of them squeaks into like an almost top 10 performance. If Everton didn't have a 10-point reduction, I think. Again, the only thing, then I think the team's really Brentford at 19 points, non-Forest at 20 points. Okay, maybe they will be a little bit concerned. But really, if you're a fan of them, I don't think you'll be worried at all, because every other team, again, Luton, Burnley, Sheffield United, all been bad, from degrees of like horrendous to bad. Like there's never been a situation where they've been good. And you see some positive moments from Burnley at some points. But again, really wishing, again, I had doubled down similar to Gio on the Aston Villa pick. That would have been fun. But looking back, to be honest, I really wish I believed that kind of I was feeling the Sean Dyche moment. Looking back, I think that would have been a fun take to be able to have at the beginning of the season, where we're like, okay, you know what, Everton financially constrained, but Sean Dyche knows how to be able to play football in the Premier League. I kind of wish I'd picked them, and I feel like I might, even though I think Gio, again, you're absolutely spot on. That was the correct pick there. But I feel like I would have made an argument where if they didn't have the 10-point reduction and I had picked Everton and they were a couple points off Chelsea, it's a great season from an Everton team. But obviously we're not going to just the direct comparison to Chelsea because they're but point being is that Everton at that point would have looked like a much better team. So again, that was my second pick I was leaning towards. Wish I would have taken them. And just too high on Burnley.
Yeah, honestly, I don't blame you. I was quite high on them as well. But
they
I'm
might be
kinda
a dark horse team in the championship next year. Who knows?
I mean, the way it's looking like it probably is. But I guess for you guys, we're going to talk about managers that have been let go so far. How long do you guys give Vincent Kompany at Burnley? Do you think he gets the entire season, or is it more so like we'll see how it goes if he can turn things around with a couple of signings here? Gio, do you think he will stay on with this Burnley team? What are your thoughts?
I think he's kind of earned himself. Sorry, based on what he's done in the championship for Burnley, I think he's earned himself a one full year. I think, yes, you see, as Burnley, I think you should go out and see who you can kind of drag in the January transfer window, trying to kind of uplift the team a little. Maybe something a little different to fit into the pieces that you feel you're lacking. But I think Burnley owes it to him for at least one full season. Yes, they might be back in the championship, but you go back to the drawing board maybe. But for what he's done so far, I think he absolutely did.
Okay, I guess same question to you, Mac. Can Burnley afford it to get relegated this year?
I'm going to take coming for that shortly, so please just hold the load a little bit there. I'll come back to you. Don't worry, I got this.
In that case, then let me give you guys I guess if I had a chance to switch my selection, my choice for dark horse team was Brighton. I still rate Brighton. I think they've been doing quite well, especially with European commitments, but they haven't, of course, done as well in the Premier League as I would have hoped for them. And instead, if I could, I would replace them with a team that we did not expect to do quite well this year, not Aston Villa, and that's my second favorite team, Spurs. How well they've done, and I honestly, even though Mac, you're maybe a little bit downbeat on them finishing the season as strongly, you know what? I give my boy Ange a lot of credit, and I think he can do it. We can, if all things go well, maybe a top 6 finish. Don't think it's too far from reality, and hey, who knows? He can the way he's been sort of changing the style of play and changing the attitude of the fans towards Tottenham is very positive for them, and something I think of course with the running joke of Spurs never really winning a title, hopefully he can change things and maybe not necessarily win the Premier League, but maybe go on a run, top run here or there in the coming seasons, because I do expect them to stay on with Spurs, and I'm excited to see how their project develops under him. But yeah, those were our picks. I guess for now, we'll take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with some more categories that we had predictions for this upcoming season. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our mid-year mulligan, reviewing now the preseason predictions that we had, and the next category we're going to talk about is notable match shit that we predicted would happen this year. I'll go first. I predicted that we're going to get a game that has 3 or more goals after the 90-minute mark. I think we've had a couple of games where we've had 2 at the very least. So we haven't hit my prediction yet, but I'm confident. I'm confident that we will get a crazy game here from here to the end of the season where we see maybe more than 3 goals scored after the 90-minute mark, especially with the added time with VAR. Of course, we've already had some controversial decisions. We've already discussed some of those decisions, and I'm excited to see some more drama and controversy that comes from that. But Gio, I guess let's hear your prediction for this category.
My prediction being, the most cards ever handed out in a Premier League season. And I think based on the numbers so far, I'm on great pace to do so.
Yep, yep.
Obviously with the red card count, it's already surpassed. From past seasons. Don't know exact numbers yet, but I know it's been passed. I know yellow
Yep.
cards we're going to be on a good pace. A lot of yellow cards this season as they're more strict on time wasting. We've seen an
Mm.
uptick in yellow cards there, and just players kind of arguing back at the referee. They're trying to protect the referee as much as they can. Hopefully, no physical altercations, can ever come out of that. But yeah, they are trying their best to protect the referees as much as they possibly can. So, yeah, if I had to double down on one thing, apart from Aston Villa, which would be the easy one to go for, but I think I will double down on this because numerically and statistically, it seems like this seems like another shoe in apart from Villa, being my dark horse team. So this is my double down, and hopefully it will work.
Yeah, of course. Just reading here, the stats after 140 games in the Premier League, we've already had more cards given out for dissent than in previous full seasons. Also, time wasting, already 80 cards given at the halfway mark of this season compared to last season where they had 90. So 10 more in the whole of last season compared to 80 at this point. So I think you're on great track there. And we don't condone betting, but if you guys are all have any inklings to bet, bet the cards over would be a safe choice this season, I would say. Uh, what about you, Mac? What is your prediction? What was your prediction for this category?
So mine was that Eddie Howe was going to be sacked at some point this season. And just like Gio, this is the category I want to double down on it. Not because I'm the most confident that would happen, but I feel like this going into the season was an extremely spicy take. And nothing has happened necessarily that I think has changed my belief that it could happen. Got bowed out of the Champions League, not going really deep in any competitions. And to answer your further question earlier, right, in terms of how I feel about this company and can they afford to be able to keep him on pace right now, I want you, gents, tell me who you think top five and odds to be sacked in the Premier League as a manager right now. I think this should be pretty. You probably should have a couple just looking at the standings that might give you some help there. Is there a particular team? And then Ten Hag is first. The odds on right now to be sacked. Any other guesses from you gents?
I want to say Brentford boss
Thomas Frank?
Thomas
No,
Frank.
he's not in the fifth. He's actually sixth, so just outside the top five.
I would say. I want to say Crystal Palace.
Ooh,
Roy Hodgson is second.
Great shout.
Eddie Howe is actually third. Fourth is Vincent Kompany, and fifth is Pochettino. So we're talking in terms of odds to be sacked. Again, that plays a lot into what clubs are generally supported the most. If they're on the balance tournament, you're going to get more, like I guess maybe opposition fans or their own fans betting those, and that's might kind of impact the odds. But what this means for me right now is Eddie Howe top three in terms of potentially be sacked. It seems like generally speaking, when you look at managers sacked throughout the Premier League season, it's almost half. We've only had a few being sacked thus far this season. He's lost 4 of the last 5 games in the Premier League, not really going deep in any competitions. And the next team he has to face is Manchester City. So if he gets pillaged in that game, and it's 5 out of 6 games he's taken the loss potentially. I know I'm forecasting a little bit forward, not able to get the traction that they want in January. Things are not looking great for the club. What's the easiest fix for them to be able to turn things around? Is change the manager. So again, based off the betting odds of the odds I would have got at the beginning of the season for Eddie Howe to be sacked this year, I think I would be making a pretty penny if I had the opportunity to double down at the beginning of the season, and I would double down because again, a lot of injuries. Doesn't seem they're hopeful to make a lot of incomings, but if they don't do the correct ones, the issue is just going to compound further and further and further for this team. And if they finish where they are right now, which is 9th, he's guaranteed gone before the end of the year.
Ooh.
If they finish 9th, he's guaranteed gone.
It's a great shout because, yeah, I wouldn't have expected it at the beginning of the season, but even now, just looking at where they are right now and where kind of they're headed, I wouldn't be, I guess, too shocked. I would be surprised, but it wouldn't be like the most shocking thing to happen this year if he did get let go, depending on how things go. So keeping an eye out on that. Let's then talk about potentially relegated teams. I think we all were similar in this category. But of course, I think we all have one outlier. I'm gonna go first. My teams to get relegated were Luton Town, Sheffield, and Everton. Of course, Everton being the team that's the outlier here. Pretty much, I think we can all agree Luton and Sheffield probably will get relegated. Everton, though, crazy how they've bounced back. And hey, props to them. Maybe they can make top 10 and Sean Dyche can get some reinforcements, some big boys to sort of bully other teams in midfield, and we'll see how they do next year. But what about you, Gio? Who do you have for this category?
Tough picks. I thought Wolves looked good early on into the season. Until obviously a little, a quick manager change here and there, and all of a sudden, um, things start rolling, and they've been playing good football. I think we have two Koreans in the top 10 or five in goal scoring in the Premier League. So you know, hey, the Koreans are playing well. The Koreans are playing well, and they're scoring goals. Yeah, no, it's just shocking how quickly they've kind of turned it around. I think they let Silva go on a loan again. Did they not, or recently, or are they keeping him on?
Fabio Silva, I think there's talks
Yeah,
where there's talks of it. I haven't seen any
yeah.
confirmation come through. At least me
They
personally.
Just looking it up right now. He's actually on loan at Rangers
Oh,
okay,
that was
yeah.
done.
Wolves. So
That was done.
Okay,
Yes, okay.
so yeah, I remember reading something. Obviously, he was a project. It doesn't seem like he's kind of working out as well as they'd like
yeah,
to. He keeps getting sent out on loan, to other clubs. So hopefully, he does really well in the club. Another club falls in love with him and kind of makes an offer for him. It just doesn't seem like he's um, fit for the English game. Some would say, for a lack of a better term. But it just doesn't seem like he's it. So I think deep down inside, from the organization, I think they're kind of slowly progressing away from Fabio Silva. Still very young, still very talented. So I think they could still get a fair bit back for as much as they paid for him. But I it's good days for Wolves. They're playing solid football. They're beating big clubs at that. So definitely not a fluke. They've been quite consistent going forward. But obviously, Everton again losing the points brought them back down into the relegation zone, which was quite nice for my predictions. But again,
yeah.
have been on form like you said, crazy. But yeah, Sean Dyche is gonna earn himself a little bit of a leeway in terms of who he can and cannot try and bring in. But it's good for him, and hopefully we're still looking for it. We're still looking for it. Hopefully the resurgence of Dele Alli. So there's a
Yes,
lot
sir.
going on for Everton, and hopefully that of Dele Alli is included in it.
Yeah, yeah. Mac, I think you had a similar pick there with Wolves, and then I think you matched myself with Luton Sheffield. Any word on how Wolves have been sort of surprising you?
No, the manager changing, the manager bump, it is what it is. I feel like it's more my disappointment, as we talked about earlier with Burnley, in comparison to Wolves being that good. Because if you take away their 3 wins, they would be at 19 points, and that's their 3 most recent wins since the manager change. So if that didn't occur, do I feel like they could have been in a bottom or relegation position? Yes, they would have been. And of course, at that point, then if Burnley were a little bit better, it would have been so different. But you and I are right now on par for this category, so I'm content. I'm content with the results so far.
Well, if I could maybe bring something to the table, Gio, you mentioned that, of course, Hwang for Wolves has been on the goals. I think he's top 6 in the Premier League at the moment. I think he has 10. Maybe he took what goal scoring magic Raul Jimenez had and took on that role. Of course, scoring for Wolves now and making a difference there. So we'll keep an eye on that. Next category, very quick one. First manager to get sacked. Mac, you and I picked Paul Heckingbottom. That was the first manager to get sacked. Gio, you had Marco Silva, who, you know what? I don't think he's too far off either, but of course, still in the job. I guess maybe at this point, Gio, do you think he may be on the hot seat before the season ends to get sacked? What are your thoughts there?
That Fulham win bought him maybe 5 more games. Within 5 more games, if the results don't go their way, I can definitely see him getting sacked still this season. So he's definitely earned himself some time. But the question is how much. But I do strongly believe that he won't make it till the end of the season.
Ooh, big shout there. Okay. Well, I think those were all the other categories. Now we're gonna go into individual award winners. These categories, of course, top goal scorer, most assists, most clean sheets, most yellow cards, most red cards, and of course, player of the season, which is just a prediction. But let's go start with top goal scorer. Myself, I picked Holland. Mac, you picked Holland as well. Gio, you had a peculiar pick in this section. So let us hear yourself walk us through your pick for this one.
Yeah, I mean, top goal scorer. I think it's very obvious who I picked, and he no longer plays in the Premier League. Actually, prior to starting the season, he was shipped out to Germany, and that being Harry Kane in Bayern Munich, who's actually doing bits there as well. So, if the case was that I can still have Harry Kane stats, I would obviously keep him, but that's definitely not the case here. Let me actually, because I've thought about this. I've thought about where I can go with this. Who I can pick.
Okay.
To get a couple more points than the boys. And a gambler at heart. The obvious pick would be Erling Haaland. So that we can equal points in this category.
Mhm.
But I think, obviously, granted, with the Manchester City run that they are inevitably going to have, it seems like the right pick to do. But I think, as a gambler, I will pick Mo Salah to be the top goal scorer.
Ooh.
So just to keep it interesting, I this is my one pick that I would change, and it would be from Harry Kane to Mo Salah.
If you feel like giving away money, you can just EMT me, like if you want. If that's what we do, and like that's crazy. But that's what it is.
Hey, you gotta keep it interesting. Gotta keep it interesting.
For sure. I love it. I love it. On the other hand, would double down on Holland just because right now, top goal scorers, they're actually matched, I think, 14 for both Holland and Salah, but I expect Holland, after he comes back from injury, to just kill the rest of the competition. But yeah, Mac, any word on this category?
Nah, that's Holland.
Perfect. Okay, next would be assists. Myself, I picked Saka. Gio, you picked Bruno Fernandes, and Mac, you also picked Saka. Currently, Mo Salah leads with 8. Then we have Ollie Watkins, Pedro Neto, Ken Trippier, Julian Alvarez. I don't see any of our picks up here in the.
So what it's happening is Saka's tied for 5th, along with I think it's 7 other players.
Right.
I think it is 7 or 8 other players. So they're all in and around the same. If I remember correctly, Bruno Fernandes.
It's like 34th right now.
Yeah, because he has 3, right? Yeah, because he has 3 assists. So it's not too far off between all of us. I think the surprise though, and what's interesting for Gio picking Salah for goals, if you had the odds on for Salah being an assist here, I think that's again the least, probably the one of the more underappreciated side of his games that maybe none of us really expected to be kind of a key feature for a Liverpool attack, where it's more egalitarian, where you get a lot of different options there. I think that's a little bit more surprising part of his game, to be first titled on Ollie Watkins, who himself, I think prior to this season, I don't think he had this right now. 8 assists is more assists than he's had in his entire, like in any individual season in his entire career. So these are like players treading new ground that we haven't seen before. So again, full credit to them. But I don't personally, sorry to jump the gun, I'm not too far off with the soccer picks. I don't mind it.
Okay. I for sure agree. Saka still has potential to make it up there. In terms of Bruno, I did want to, before I toss it to you, I think I came across something online where I think he's been one of the top creators in terms of big chances for his team.
Yes.
Of course, unfortunately for Man U fans, the goals haven't come or match those chances created. But Gio, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I was actually about to mention that about Bruno is in terms of key chances created, I think he's up there with the best of them. Just the team hasn't been able to convert. And to that Mo Salah assist point that Mac made, if it came down to the last game of the season and he was tied on assist, he would be having to pass through Darweezy, and I just don't know if I can trust Darweezy. Sorry, Ray. I know you're a big Liverpool guy, but if I had to put my money on Darweezy, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put my money on Darweezy.
No, I totally get where you're coming from. So we'll see what happens there. Next category would be most clean sheets. Myself and Mac again, very similar here. Picked Ederson, and Gio, yourself, you picked Ramsdale for this one. But of course, we didn't. I think we weren't privy to the actual transfer that took place after our choices were made, and that's David Raya coming to Arsenal. But that note, I don't think any of our choices are in the top picks at the moment. Oh, we do have. Actually, no. Ederson has 5, and I guess the counterpart to Ramsdale, David Raya has 5 as well. Alisson and Onana leading that category. I guess Mac, anything here surprise you in terms of most clean sheets so far this season?
No, but I remember on the podcast, Gio, I think I was going at you for this pick. I'm like, how could you don't pick Ramsdale? I would think, if I recall correctly, I remember telling you, do not pick Ramsdale. He is going, I'm not surprised that what happened. And I think if he was starting, he definitely wouldn't be leading the league. I think the surprising part is how, considering, I think, a negative viewpoint Onana's had from a lot of Manchester United fans to see him up there in the lead. It's not dissimilar to the person that he replaced, David De Gea, the last couple of years, generally always leading in clean sheets, but getting a lot of flack for maybe some of his individual performances, which again, I would defend him on those performances, but some other people wouldn't. So again, I think that's probably the most surprising way if we just look at this individual stat so far this season.
I did want to just jump on Gio's, I guess, defense there. In terms of most, looking at the Premier League website, most clean sheets, William Saliba actually leads because I think there was a game where Brentford faced Arsenal, so Raya couldn't play, and Ramsdale got the assist. So, the clean sheet. So, if we're looking at averaging out, if we had Ramsdale instead of Raya, I think Ramsdale would be in the lead there. So, Gio, I guess I could give you half marks on that. What are your thoughts on that, though?
This might be the only time Mac doesn't support an Englishman. So, guys.
No, I want him to be good. That's not
mark it down on your calendars. I expected a little bit more anger, in support of Ramsdale, but I guess Mac isn't a true Englishman as he sells himself.
I'm Scottish. What are you doing? That's what you're doing. I'm sorry.
Fantastic. Next category is yellow cards. Myself, I picked Joplina. Gio picked Casemiro, and Mac picked Caicedo. Let me look through our yellow cards.
Paulina's tie for first with 8. So you're
Fantastic.
Spot on with that, Ray. Casemiro, I think for Gio, we also, funny enough, maybe if we can tie in this category together with red cards, Casemiro has been injured too often to get enough red cards or yellow cards to be justified, really. And that's been the tough spot there, at least when we're going at these two categories.
So with that being said, now that he's back, Ray, watch out because
he's coming. He's coming.
He's coming
back for vengeance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mac, anything on Caicedo? I'm not able to see him up
54th.
here.
He's 54th with four yellow cards. So again, he's not in with the shell. Definitely, my disappointment for me is not picking Bruno Guimaraes, even though I really enjoyed, in some ways, how he kind of forearmed. What's my boy, the guy I hate in Arsenal again, midfielder? Jorginho. I just try to erase him from my memory, even though I really enjoyed that, and he should have got a red card for that. So again, that would have been my disappointment because I love him as a player technically, but he has that, for lack of better Suarez, the bite to him, in midfield where he's able to make those challenges. So again, that would be my disappointment. I should have picked him, but again. Caicedo, you gotta play more games, bro. What you doing? He has no passion. He has no passion to get these yellow cards. What are you doing? You can't walk about Brighton before.
Yeah, it's not great. But let's move on to the next category. Very much regarding cards, most red cards. Myself, I picked John Egan, the Sheffield defender, Gio Casemiro, and Matt Casemiro. Could still make the weight because I don't think John Egan is on the board as of yet. That being said, though, do you guys know who the leader for most red cards is currently? Any surprises there, Mac?
Yeah, the tie between Basuma and Oliver McBurney there. That's crazy. at the top two, with both with 2 each. It seems like the red cards have been spread out more evenly this year, where there has been, as Gio would like to say, a plethora of them, but it's not been kind of hit to the same player like 4 or 5 times. And maybe not 4 or 5 in a regular season, but halfway through the season, maybe there'll be one player with 3, few more players with 4. But it seems like everybody's had their tackle of madness or their accidental like throw-in mistake, and they got their second yellow card to give themselves a red card. So it seems much more split there.
Well, that is, of course, in part with Gio's prediction with the most cards. So, hey, maybe that's just another way for these players to get red cards and maybe get some games off. But of course, we're not condoning that type of behavior. Let's move on to our final category, which is Player of the Season. Now, Mac, you and I had Saka for this one. Gio, you had Odegaard. I'm not sure we are able to really tell at this point who our sort of player of the season will be. So myself being the host, I'm gonna give you guys the opportunity to then either stick with this pick or choose someone else. I'll toss it to you first, Gio. Would you like to stick with Odegaard, or would you like to switch it to a different pick for player of the season at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think I would like to pick, and it will go hand in hand with the person I changed my Harry Kane pick to. It is Mo Salah. Look, they're in a great position. Yes. Do they have a shot at the title? Absolutely. Yes, you can give it to, say, an Aston Villa player who has been shining. Yes, you can go down the list in terms of Arsenal. Again, many great players to choose from there. But I just think for a team who's through the analysts, through the fans, through footballing watchers across the world, counted as maybe just squeezing in as a top 4 team based on who they had, based on the previous season, signing Szoboszlai, who is not known to many, not familiar to many, and wouldn't be on the top of many players transfer lists, but they went out there, got him, and he's been I would say exceptional for them so far. Has done everything that Klopp has asked of him, and they're sitting where I think if not 2, 1, they definitely deserve that spot. So I think it's gonna come down to the wire in terms of the Premier League title, and I think if Liverpool do win it, which they have a great chance of, you do have to look at Salah, where he's leading in assists. No, he's in the top 3 in assists and goals. So
Yep.
you definitely have to. He's definitely automatically inserted in himself in that conversation, whether we like it or not.
Great shout there. Mac, yourself, what about you?
So I would change mine as well. And I want to give you a little bit of rationale, and maybe Ray, this might help influence your answer. Who knows? The betting odds favorites, as like the least gambler, risky person here amongst the 3 of us. It's weird that I'm always the one looking this up.
Always have the odds.
The odds on for, let's say, the top. Let's say I'll give you the top in order. It's Haaland, Rodri, Mohamed Salah, Declan Rice, Trent, Bukayo Saka, Bernardo Silva, Odegaard, Julian Alvarez, and Son. So that's your top 10 in terms of odds in order of who would win the PFA Player of the Year. I think this is 100% because the differentiator for me going in is that, okay, the easiest way to, is there a one player that can individually separate themselves if they weren't to win the title, that they would be deserving of this award? I don't think we've had that season from any player. There isn't, let's say, like a last year season for Haaland, where I would argue even if they didn't win the Premier League, he would still win the PFA Player of the Year. But he's now set that expectation. He hasn't surpassed that level. Therefore, he isn't the kind of that new, fresh, nothing's evolved, nothing's really changed. So I don't think he would deserve it. So it's all, in my opinion, going to come down on who you think is going to win it. And of course, I'm going to stick by my preseason prediction, going with Arsenal winning it. And if Arsenal win it, based off those odds, it wouldn't be Saka, it would be Rice. And I said this a couple weeks on the podcast when Arsenal were first place. If the season were end that day, Declan Rice would be the difference maker. Declan Rice would be the one that would win the PFA Player of the Year, in my opinion. So for me, again, you can skew your answer depending on who you feel is going to win the Premier League. And I feel like that's going to be the number one factor. The interesting question for me is that, because let's say, for example, if Liverpool win it, is there a case for Trent over Salah? Or if Man City will win it, is there a case for Rodri over Haaland? Is there a case for Saka over Rice? Player like that, I think that's a differentiator where from those three teams, I think there's a clear one on who would win it as of today. So again, I would change my answer to Rice.
I love that pick because hand in hand, I'm gonna change my pick to who I think is gonna win the Premier League, and I'm sticking with my choice of Man City win the Premier League. I agree. Haaland probably will come in and score loads of goals, but I think the most important player, and again, 1 and 2 in terms of best defensive midfielders in the world, Rodri and Declan Rice. I'm of course gonna go with who I think is gonna win the Premier League, Man City, and so I'm gonna go with Rodri. Same exact reasoning, because as well we can see how impactful these two players are to their respective teams, and it just comes down to I think who is more irreplaceable. Whereas we've seen already, Man City still get some results without Haaland, and even without Kevin De Bruyne. But we'll see. We'll see how the season ends for them. And of course, the Premier League is still wide open for all those teams up there. So we'll see how that goes. But guys, this concludes our podcast for today. If you guys like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at House of_Footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Tuesday when we review the action from the FA Cup and discuss some transfers, as of course the January transfer window is now open. And so we'll definitely keep an eye out on that. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us tonight.
Peace out.
Thank you, Gio.
Thanks for nothing, Harry Kane.
See you guys.